Hi everyone, welcome to the Finance Story Career Insight series. So with our Career Insight series, we aim to bring in industry leaders to share their insights and learnings, to help you in your career. To understand more about how rewarding can a career in banking be and how one can build a successful career, especially as a corporate banker, we have with us Harvansh Grover, who heads the corporate banking South India at HDFC Bank. To give you some perspective, Harvansh is responsible for the coverage of conglomerates and large corporates, most of them who are Fortune 500 companies, across the states of Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, and Telangana. Harvansh is a chartered accountant by qualification and has had a phenomenal career growth. He started his career with Citi in 2006 in Indore on the operations side and then moved as an RM. And 13 years later, he joined HDFC in 2019. So today, Harvansh will share his career journey and learnings on what it takes to grow and be a successful corporate banker. Harvansh, thank you so much for joining in and thanks for the time. So excited to have you speak with us.
Hi, Shantel. My pleasure. My pleasure to be there with you and the audience this evening.
Thank you. And everyone watching, thank you so much for joining in. If you all have any questions, okay, just comment and we'll be happy to take up any question. Harvansh, I'll start with the first question. It's on the panel here. So, how did CA happen and why banking as a career? Could you go back and tell us a little bit about your journey? And also, how did you enter corporate banking, on the sales side as a relationship manager, especially being a CA, right? So, yeah.
Okay, so it goes back to my college days in Hansraj. I graduated from Hansraj College in 2003. I did BCom honors from there, and I grew up in an environment which was full of chartered accountants. So a lot of people in my family as well as my neighbors those days were too much into finance. And I also did my schooling in a Jain college. Jain college has a lot of people from Marwari communities. In India we call it Baniya community, which predominantly are quite into a chartered accountancy. So the surrounding, I think, has a lot of impact in my primitive years to aspire for CA as a career. So I took up CA along with my graduation in Hansraj, and then ended up completing it by 2005. But yes, always I wanted to be a banker right from my school. I remember when I was in eighth or ninth standard, the teacher used to ask in the class who wants to do what, and I was very clear that I want to be a banker. So people used to be a little bit surprised that how can a guy who is in an eighth class is so very clear. But yeah, again, I think I was blessed that that clarity was there from the primitive years. So once I cleared my CA in 2005, in the campus, there were a lot of companies, and I was fortunate enough to get break into banking with Citibank, into roles in operations. So that's how the journey, of CA and then transitioning into as a banker happened.
Okay, so Harvansh, did you know what profile in banking you would be interested in after qualifying as a CA, or you just knew you wanted to get into banking? Did you have clarity on that aspect?
Not really, because look, in CA we end up studying a lot about taxes, a lot about audit, a lot about accounting. Banking, unfortunately, is not a formal subject in our curriculum. Even till today, it is still not there. So, for someone who is just out of your educational degree, to have a real in-depth knowledge what banking has to offer to incoming grad is something which was tough in those days. Nowadays I see people are connected all throughout LinkedIn. Even by the time they do CA, they are already having some 2-3 thousand followers. So today's world is very different. People are far more aware of the professional network and what roles are there to offer. But back in 2005, that awareness was not there. But yes, City that way was quite, I would say, helpful in the sense that you get in as a management associate, and within like 2 to 3 years, if you are mobile as a person, you will get to do various roles. So that way, I was blessed that I was open in my thought process that okay, if I'm getting an entry through operations, let me get in there. And once I spend some time, I get exposed to the system, and then I can see how I can then navigate within different roles in within CA, within city.
Okay, that's amazing. Before we go more into your journey and how you built your career, for those watching, can you tell us what is exactly a corporate banker? What are the responsibilities and what does a corporate banking team consist of? Yeah.
Sure. See, corporate banking is a very niche profile, right? As the name suggests, it's a part of the banking which deals with the corporates. So, the part of the wing that I represent to, where I've spent majority of my career, both at Citi and HDFC, deals with the large corporates. These are all Fortune 500 companies across different sectors, uh, be it automobile, be it pharma, be it consumer healthcare, be it technology or FMCGs, etc. So the role of a corporate banker is to understand the industry very well. How a pharma is different from FMCG or from consumer or healthcare, etc., is the basic knowledge that a corporate banker has to have. And second thing is the credit underwriting, because a majority part of what we do is to underwrite the credit. It could be in the form of working capital loan, could be in the form of term loans, could be in the form of project finance or acquisition finance. So one has to have a basic and to enter into a corporate banking, a basic knowledge of the balance sheets, the P&L, the financial ratios, etc., so that one can actually appreciate that once you know the industry, you can know the health of the balance sheet. You can differentiate a good balance sheet from a bad balance sheet, uh, for you to make a decision that can you enter into a relationship, can you lend, if you can lend, what is the appetite you have, what tenor appetite do you have, etc., etc. So for a corporate banker, I think the basic knowledge of the financial statement is must. Then the majority role is a role of an advisor. So at times, client would want you to have a greater insight into their balance sheet as well as into their business, perhaps more than what they themselves have, because you do banking day in day out. So, but a CFO or a treasurer will have 20 more things to manage. So it's important that you understand industry in and out, you understand the client in and out, you understand the balance sheet in and out, so that you are in a right position to advise your clients. In terms of what do we do, we provide the support on the financing, which is, as I said, different forms of financing, right from working capital to all the way to M&A and equifinance. Then we are there to help our clients in advisory, which includes M&A activity, which includes equity fundraising through an IPO, which also includes private placement through private equity firms. It includes advisory on the debt capital market through bond raising, etc. Then it also includes a greater amount of efforts that we place on the transaction banking. Most of our large corporates have subsidiaries all over the world. Plus, they have dealings through exports, import across the world. So we come in and provide them support in foreign exchange, in booking of forwards, options, derivatives, etc. As well advisory on a proper transaction banking, which includes cash management, trade services, etc. So these are the large things that typically we end up spending majority of our time as corporate bankers.
Okay, I have one more question. Can you explain, the difference between transaction banking, sales, treasury, investment banking? What sets these roles apart from each other, and what specific skills, if I want to decide should I get into treasury or should I get into transaction? How do I know what suits me best?
Sure. So, look, a corporate banker is a more of a coverage role. So, a corporate banker is someone who has to cover the entire franchise. So, if you are representing corporate banker for a corporate client, means that you are responsible for every single thing that bank has to offer, be it a product that he needs on an M&A side, be it a product on investment banking side or a capital market side or on a derivative side or on a transaction banking side. You need to have a basic to at least a mid-level understanding of each one of them for you to be able to understand what the client's problem statement is. And then depending upon the need where you need to deep dive in specific product, you can involve your respective product experts. So for example, let's say somebody needs a solution on M&A activity. you need to definitely bring your IB partner in, who have appropriate amount of network within the country as well as offshore, to in order to help the client to scout for the right targets. Similarly, let's say if a client needs to enter into a derivative contract, if he has taken a ECB and he wants to hedge the risk, then you need to bring in your treasury partner to advise them on a cross currency risk, right? So while you will understand the basics of it, but for someone to have a in-depth knowledge and to execute, you need to work along. So the role of a corporate banker is more of a coverage role, where you understand the banking in totality, and then depending upon the need that a client has, right from transaction banking to treasury sales to investment banking to capital markets, you bring in your partners, and along with them you form a solution. So your job is not just a postmaster job that you get in a guy and you get out. Your job is to work with them to work on a solution, which could be in certain situation maybe a one product partner to get involved. In certain other situation could be combination of two or three product partners involved, so that you can stitch the solution together and provide a one-stop offering to the client.
Wow. So you really need to read a lot, understand a lot. It's a lot of heavy duty work. Okay.
It is
Okay.
indeed.
It is. Okay, so I'll come to this question as well, as to how do you update yourself? How do you understand, because you're meeting so many people, how do you upskill yourself and understand what's happening in the market? So you can, in fact, take the question now itself. Like, what is your process when you have to understand and know so many aspects when you're in front of the client? So how do you go about with it?
I think, Chantil, the good thing about being a corporate banker is that you get to network reasonably well, right? So you meet all across, right from the treasurers to CFOs to MDs and CEOs to the promoter level, and you meet them day in, day out. So if I were to tell you, if I spend, let's say, 12 to 13 hours at work, half of that goes into meeting people, right? So every single day, I make sure, and like me, many of the corporate bank make sure that they are in the industry, meeting their clients. And clients are your biggest teachers, right? So you meet the promoter of a auto company, he will tell you the nuances of what the company is going through, how electric vehicles are going to change the entire dynamics into a two-wheeler industry. I don't think anybody can teach you better than the promoter of the two-wheeler company itself. Similarly, if you want to understand about pharma, how biologics is different from the traditional formulation or a API business, if you are with the CFO of one of the top leading pharma companies, you hear from the horse's mouth. So one is that you read a lot, whatever is available on public media in terms of your upscaling your industry knowledge. You have to be in front of CNBC, you have to be in front of many other similar news channels to be fully updated. But more importantly, you have to be close to your client. A corporate banker has to ensure that at least two-thirds of his time is being spent with his clients, and only one-third is in office. So they are your best teachers.
Okay, that's exciting. So I have this question for you, but first, let us go back a little, okay, to understand how did you move from the operations side to the sales or the relationship management role. I read a post of yours where you said, hey, you wanted to get into the front side of the role, but there were no opportunities coming up. Then you almost got into ISB. You were supposed to join in when a role came in, and then you dropped an MBA and went all out. So can you share a little bit, how did you transition? Okay, and that's one. And second one is, what was the learning curve? As you said, you spend a lot of your time with clients. So are you naturally inclined to being in front of clients, or there's a lot of work that went over the years, and today it's convenient? So can you add on that?
Sure. So, Chantel, a lot of people. So, I have been fortunate enough to take more than maybe 200 interviews in the last 3 years at HDFC. As the bank is expanding, we need people. Some of the times, people ask me questions that you don't grill people too much on the technical aspect. You are spending a lot of time to understand the person, and most of the decision making you do. See, I personally believe that look. Two, three things are very important for any profession, for corporate banker more. One is that your passion. are you really passionate about the banking, which means that does it excite you? uh, do you like to make money out of money? Do you like to spend time in the industry with the people? If the answers to some of these questions is yes, then you have an inherent passion towards it. And my sense is that if you have a built-in inherent passion, then 80% of the job is done. Then you don't have to then spend too much time in terms of the other aspects. The second thing is the trust factor. For a banker, I personally believe the most valued thing is, can you trust a specific individual? Because client look up to you only when they see you demonstrating time and again that you have done something which they consider valuable. You can't be a rock star banker overnight. You have to invest, and at times it becomes little boring also, to demonstrate to a client over a period of time that you are their trusted advisor. So that anytime a bigger thing comes in their journey, they will think of you. They don't have the I would say scarcity of the number of bankers. Today we have more than 140 banks operating in India, and thousands of corporate bankers. So for you to make your own niche, to create a brand value on the street, you have to have that trust factor which is developed over a period of time. And the last is the solutions, right? So we are seen as advisors. We are not here to do a day-to-day transaction banking all the time. There are different sections in the bank which does it. We are here to provide advisory which client can correlate, can implement and see the results. So you have to spend a lot of time in solving the issues, solving the problems. So a lot of brain goes into figuring out the creative solutions. So all of this is important. Now coming back to your question on my journey, so I joined City in operations. I personally believe if one joins or starts a journey in operations, it's very, very helpful, because it gives you the foundation that you need either out of MBA or out of a CA, irrespective of which education stream you come from. If you spend couple of years in operations, in cash management, in trade services, in the finance business, you understand how a letter of credit works, how a bank guarantee works, how a EDPMS, IDPMS works. And so that, when later on in your year you become a corporate banker or an investment banker, you have made your hand dirty. So when you are in front of client, the confidence, the clarity of thought is visible. You don't need an army of product partners when you are in front of client. You don't need a product selling manager or a FX dealer to be with you necessarily to advise, because you have been there, done that. So I feel that God was, has been gracious all throughout, and the city and HDFC both have been investing on bankers to ensure that the people who are mobile, who are ambitious, get to do multiple roles. So I initially did 3 years of transaction banking in my career. As you rightly mentioned, I wrote a post that after 3 years I wanted to, get into a front end banking, but in those days it was difficult to move from operations role directly into a corporate banker. One has to become a service manager or a product sales manager then to get there. So a lot of people, my seniors, advised me that why don't you do an MBA and then straight away go into business. So I got an admit in ISB, but as luck would have it, at the same point in time, City offered me a role directly into a corporate banking. And my mentor at that point in time asked me a very simple question. You really want to be a lecturer, or you really want to get into academics? If so, maybe you want to pursue another degree. But if you want to be a corporate banker and you are clear, the clarity of thought is there, and we are offering you this, then you don't need to necessarily navigate through another degree. And I took his advice, and 15-year past, fast forward, I have no regrets. I think uh, I was very clear that I wanted to be a corporate banker, and I got the break. And after that, I spent a good amount of time in corporate banking. Then after doing that, I also spent some time in dealing room as a dealer in FX and derivatives, covering South India markets and City, and then came back to corporate banking because after you done multiple role, where there is your calling. So I always wanted to be in front of the CFOs with MDs and the promoters, which I thought a role in a corporate bankers gives you much better leverage as compared to any other product roles in banking. So that was the reason I decided to come back to corporate banking, and it's been more than 5 years now, back in my role in corporate banker.
Wow. That's amazing. Harvansh, would you want to take this up? How steep was the learning curve for you, especially when it was when you had to be in front of clients? So how did you hone your skills and build strong relationships with clients? If you could just tell us a little bit about that, because these aspects are not really taught, right? But with your experience, a lot of people watching, and a lot of them already have questions. But I'll take this up and take the questions. But
Sure.
can you address this? Yeah.
Sure. So I think, as I said, Chantel, I have a lot of respect for academics. A CA is not an easy course, and I'm sure a lot of CAs are watching it, upcoming CAs. It's a tough course, a lot of respect for academics. But I personally believe there cannot be a university better than the University of Life. It teaches you a lot of lessons. You just have to be conscious. At times when we get into our professions, we become semi-conscious that we just end up doing certain things out of habits. We are not consciously setting ourselves certain objectives or certain targets. We just feel it like a job, and then the life passes by without you being conscious. But if you are someone who could get conscious even for an hour in a day, and you make that attempt for 1 hour in a day to ensure that you want to develop a certain particular skill or certain knowledge about certain industry, and you work towards it, believe me, you can just do wonders with your career. And in a role like corporate banker, I think this is something which you get to do very easily. Because let's say if a corporate banker is managing 40 clients, and these 40 clients are cut across consumer, healthcare, technology, pharma, automobile, etc., then imagine the source of information you have. You get to meet the CFOs, you get to meet the MDs, you get to meet the promoters, uh, and you have all the reason to ask questions, right? Because you are the lender. Now, if I'm going to lend, I need to make sure that I'm lending after appropriate due diligence. So I have all the reasons in the world to ask them tough questions, easy questions, nonsensical question at times. So long as you have the passion and you want to do it wholeheartedly, sky is the limit for your learning. Yes, but one has to develop this habit that you are in front of clients consciously, more often than being in office, because at times the life just carries away. You have a lot of housekeeping work to do, you have a lot of underwriting to do, so you may invariably end up spending too much time in office. But believe me, you are letting go a golden opportunity if every single day you are not being in front of your clients. So if so long as you are able to spend time and able to ask right set of question to right set of people, you will end up developing the knowledge about those industries very naturally over a period of time.
Okay, so the emphasis on client facing and asking questions to the client, learning, okay, is very important. Okay, so my next question is: do you have to be an extrovert just because you're in this profile? That because it involves it involves so much of being in front of other people, right? Involves being outside, out of your comfort zone. So, do you have to be an extrovert for this role? And are you an extrovert?
I don't know. These definition, extrovert, introvert, sometimes I feel they are overdone definitions. I personally feel when I was growing up, I grew up in a very humble background. I studied in a Hindi medium school, all boys school, a very shy guy. I don't know if by any stretch of imagination I could have called myself an extrovert. I don't think so. If I were to do justice with this definition, I think it's not about extrovert or introvert. It's all about what you want to do in life, and it's true for any role. For a client-facing role, if you are really comfortable being in front of clients and ask the right set of questions with an intent to solve them, that's all what you need. You need not be a flamboyant. You need not be someone who is a very good-looking or is dressed so extraordinarily or very flamboyant. I don't think these are all overdone perceptions or assumptions. Uh, I can tell you, I've had all sorts of team in my, in my team, and one of the bankers was differently abled, right? And believe me, that person perhaps would have done, and I never called him an extrovert, right? Perhaps he's one of the most missed bankers in the street today by our clients. Uh, so it's not about flamboyancy, it's not about whether you are extrovert or introvert. It's all about your area of interest. If you are someone for whom banking comes naturally, you like to solve issues, you like to know about the industry, your aspiration is to be with the right set of people in the industry, then it will come to you. Nobody is going to look at the color of your skin, or the how fluent you are speaking your language, or what kind of shirt are you wearing. It's all myth. I personally believe it's your substance which people basically respect, and it's your loyalty. It's about your trust. If people can see trust in you, people can see sincerity in you, people can see a good human being in you as a banker who is ready to solve problem, 90% of the job is done. Rest is all I would personally feel is a guess.
Wow, this is a great perspective, and I'm so glad I asked this question because whenever you think of a corporate banker, a very fancy person, comes. So there are a lot of people who have the great skills, who have the understanding, but they feel, hey, you know what, maybe it's not for me. But loving this. Okay, so we'll just take a few questions before I go on to my other questions. We have a question from Girish, who says, for now, I prepare proposals and assist RMs in their deals more into the credit side. How do we break into corporate banking RM, as most of my experience is on the credit side?
So I think Girish is already on a right path, because if he's already sitting amongst the relationship managers and he's already assisting them in preparing for credit proposals, he's already doing the backbone of corporate banking, right? If I were to lend as a relationship manager, my majority of the job is to understand the credit, understand the industry, and take a decision whether I can lend or not, right? So if he's already there doing it, he's in the right, trajectory. All perhaps, Girish, I would advise you is to spend more time with your RMs, try to understand about the banking products, ask them questions. How does a cash management work? How does trade finance work? How does forward work, or a derivative transaction work? What do they do on an M&A side, etc., etc. And in your profile, try to join these RM in client meetings. It's one thing that you are sitting in office and preparing cans, etc. But it is other thing when you are with them in front of the CEO, or in front of the MD or the CFO, and basically asking them questions live. It will help you become more close to the clients. Also, if there is any kind of inhibitions in terms of not having a too much of a client facing time, etc., it will address that portion as well, and it will automatically create your network. And once you do well, those RMs only will have the vested interest in picking you up as and when the right opportunities come. Our doors are open for the right talent, so feel free to drop us your CV. If it fits in our scheme of things, we would be happy to evaluate.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll take the next question from Muskan, who says, could you please share some specific challenges or obstacles you faced when transitioning from a CA to an RM, or maybe a front-facing role? That's what you meant. And how did you overcome them?
So it's a very relevant question, Muskan. So when I did the role of the transaction banker in the initial 3 years of my life, uh, uh, I didn't know anything about letter of credit. I didn't know anything about bank guarantees, because in CA we don't get very in-depth knowledge about these products. So those terms were absolutely alien to me. So in the initial year, I had to study a lot. We were not as lucky as you guys are today, that you go to Wikipedia and you kind of download a lot of stuff. So we had to sit with our seniors and had to eat their brains. And there used to be presentations which the relationship managers used to make. So we used to borrow the prints of those presentation and used to basically learn from those terminologies which were used. And there used to be a lot of the training sessions within city, which are there in HDFC as well, which we used to make sure that we attend regularly, so that we get to associate with the terminologies well. And with time, the life teaches you. It's on the job training. So long as you are passionate about your work, you are hungry, you are invested, you would be able to pick these things. And same thing goes when I was transitioning from an operations role to an RM role. That was a little tougher one for me, because I moved from Delhi to Pune. And Pune, when I moved it, I was a single man army in 2010. And I had to take on the full responsibility of the market without knowing anything about the relationship role. So that was a tough one. But yeah, your colleagues help you, so long as you have that the team role clearly taken care of, and you are a team's player. people are there to help you. So you would need to ask for help. More often than not, we are shy of not asking for help. So long as we are professional and we ask for the help from the right people, people do come forward and they help you understand things. So it's not a rocket science. It's not too challenging. It does sound challenging when you are in, but if you are eager, you are passionate. These are very very small things to overcome.
Okay, that's Muskan. I'm sure this has helped you. My next question is I can't see the name, but how do you differentiate between a good balance sheet and a bad balance sheet?
Well, I don't think I can do justice in a interview to spend time on this. A good balance sheet or a bad balance sheet, I would say over a period of time as a banker, you understand various tools which you use to figure out how you differentiate between balance sheet. I personally believe uh, it's utmost important for any client of repute to maintain a discipline how they manage their finances. As a banker, you have various matrices. You may look at various financial ratios for you to figure out what is the temperature of the balance sheet, whether it is in health check correct or not. You do comparisons of the projections vis-a-vis the actual delivery to ensure that what client projected to you 2 years back when they took the loan from you and what the actual numbers are they meeting or are they not meeting, or are the variance material enough or not. And you need to be very clear that depending upon the industry to industry, what is the right kind of leverage, whether that particular balance sheet is within that threshold of the leverage or it is above that. uh, what kind of debt equity participations are there, is it within the industry norms or not. One also has to be cognizant of the fact that whether the industry is going to go through headwinds in the near future, and if so, what kind of cushion capital that the firm has to have. If it's a listed company, you can't be ignorant to the noise which is there from the investor community. So you need to see how the investor community is looking at that specific industry and that specific player within the industry. So there are multiple things you need to put into, you need to put them all together for you to take a call on a balance sheet.
Okay, that's amazing. We have a lot of questions coming in. I'll just take two relevant questions and I'll ask you the questions which we have already planned for, and then we'll go back to the questions. So
Okay.
everyone watching, please put in your questions. We'll address it, but we'll take this last one and then we'll retake again. What qualities do you look for when hiring for a potential RM in your team?
I think I personally look at the trust factor because the role of an RM is, is extremely role which I would say falls into a fiduciary capacity. You are the client ambassador internally, and you are the bank's ambassador externally. Believe me, the technical knowledge in banking is not a rocket science. We don't need scientists to deal with a matter which is as complex as NASA. Banking is a very very simple business. So if I spend half an hour with someone on an interview, perhaps I will spend 10 minutes to have a very basic check of the technical knowledge of the person. My majority of the time will spend to knowing the person. So long as person is someone who comes from the right kind of values, right kind of background, whom I can depend on, where the trust factor I can say 10 out of 10, majority of the job is done. But more importantly, in addition to the trust factor, the ability of a person to understand the industry, understand the banking, their inherent passion, hunger level, energy level, they are all very important. Because as a banker, you need to face a lot of problems from your clients day in, day out, which you need to solve. So you have to have a level of energy that you can, basically invest on. You have to be passionate about it. So a person to whom these three, four broad checks are there, the rest of the technical part we can teach. I don't think that is a big of a botheration. So majority of the, if I were to divide it in four quadrant, the first quadrant is a trust and the loyalty factor. The second quadrant is your hunger. The third quadrant is your passion and energy, that you bring to the work, and the fourth quadrant is your technical knowledge about the subject.
And you have to be a numbers person, like you have to be really good with numbers. That's also another important aspect, or
It's an advantage, Chantel, but I don't think that you have to be extraordinary with numbers. Like you have to have a 90 out of 100 or 95 out of 100 on your accounting or your mathematics. I don't feel so. These are a lot of, I would say, myths and a lot of flamboyancy, which basically revolve around the role of a corporate banker or an investment banker. Those are important factors. They help you. They are good assets for you, but they are not like the core decision maker, right? More often than not, we have enough time to do number crunching. We have enough tools of Excels and calculators and modeling to help us. Those things, you have aids to help you. But what you don't have, which can fill for it, is your hunger, is your passion,
Yeah.
is your level of energy, and your loyalty and trust factor. Believe me, if I have even a slightest doubt on the trust or the loyalty of a person, howsoever good that person may be, howsoever I would say knowledgeable or good looking the person may be, for me, the you know the value is zero. So trust factor is the highest, followed by your passion, your energy, your ability to understand the banking. That's it.
We'll just take this question because you just spoke about this. You said you're from a Hindi medium and you studied in a Hindi medium school. And so, how did you work on your communication skills? That's what Kunal Prasad wants to know. And how important they were in shaping your career. So, yeah.
I think in communication skills, I can still do better. I don't consider myself to be a very good communicator. I'm a very average communicator even till today. I wish I'm still, it's a work in progress. I'm consciously working on it. But I personally feel, Kunal, that, uh, the element in your personality which you are conscious about, which you think is lacking, you end up spending more time towards it. And if you end up consciously spending more time towards it, over a period of time, you are able to do justice with it. And things you are able to do justice over a period of time. You have to be a little bit patient. You don't have to freak out if in a class you are not able to communicate as well as other people are. So long as you are conscious and so long as you have determined that you will work towards it, and you work in small bits and pieces every single day, you will overcome this. I don't think that's a big challenge over a long career.
Okay, Kunal, I hope that addressed your question. Okay, my next one is, your approach to client management and how do you differentiate yourself in this aspect? So, how do you go about building and nurturing relationships with your clients? You gave us a broader perspective that this is a very important aspect, but can you give us practical instances and examples? How do you do it? What goes
So
into
I
it?
think, yeah. So Chantel, before the client meeting, you need to understand the client businesses. You need to read about it, so that when you go into the client meeting, you have done your preparation, right? So you need to understand how the last quarter performance has been, what have been their challenges, what they are facing, so that when you get into the meeting, you are already at least mentally prepared what kind of problems are likely to come. And when you ask those questions, you know how you need to address them. So preparation before the client meeting is must, which means you need to read about the industry, you need to read about their performance, you need to go through the transcripts through the investor sales which their representatives would have presented, so that you are able to understand the 360-degree view about the client. uh, so it's extremely important for you to do justice with your time as well as with client's time, and to differentiate yourself with the rest of the bankers whom the client would be interacting, right? Uh, for any Fortune 500 companies, believe me, a company will not be having less than 10 bankers. So, which will be cutting across all the private sector bank, multinational banks, PSU banks, and every bank has its own strength. A multinational bank may be having a strength on, a dollar funding. A PSU bank may have a strength on a larger appetite. So you need to understand the strength of the competition. How do you rate yourself? You need to understand the problem of the companies and how you provide solutions to that. So I personally feel that if you are invested in your client, you cover them properly before your meetings, and you ask right set of questions, and you meet the right set of people at the right level of seniority, you will always have a first mover advantage, and clients just love it. If you are a person who has been able to spot the problem, you have been able to spot the opportunity, because every solution to a problem is an opportunity for a banker. So if you know the problem, you solve for it, the money is on table for you. and the client will not mind paying you 10 basis point or 20 basis point extra, either in the coupon or in the advisory fee, if he gets the feeling that you are the one who understood him the first and who provided him the solution the first in the industry. So recall value is must, understanding the client business is must, and being loyal and trustworthy to your client is one. There cannot be one deal walk away banker concept in corporate banking. You can't just do one deal, make extra normal profits, and then just go away. That's not how we work. It's important that you build the relationship, uh, pillar after pillar, uh, milestone after milestone. So to an extent, it becomes boring also for certain people. But it's a business where you have to invest sincerely, with trust, with loyalty, with confidence. That's how you build your brand over a period of time.
Excellent. Okay, the next question is, if this makes sense, like, would you be willing to discuss a few examples of challenging situations or deals you've encountered, if you want to, or you can give it a pass?
So look, being on the private side, I can't indulge or I can't divulge information to either of the franchises that I've worked or I'm working on. But I can tell you in a generic way, uh, like as a corporate banker, I said you do multiple, you wear multiple hats. So let's say if you are doing an acquisition finance transaction, which is one of the most complex in the form of funding, and you are funding an acquisition in US, then you better need to know every single damn thing about the regulations in US, about the regulations in India, about FEMA, what kind of potential cross-border risks you are getting into, how that target is going to act overseas, and how the industry is going to act there. So deciding just because the balance sheet is good is only temptation that you have to resist to. You have to see the dynamics all across, the cross border risk that you take, industry risk that you take, and various kind of eventualities that the firm can lead into. So those are the things that you need to encounter. Similarly, if you are entering into a new to bank relationship, you don't have a track record. If you are a banker who has been given a relationship which is with the bank for last 15 years, it's a easier decision to make, because there is the banker has the client has demonstrated the performance over the years. But if you are getting into a new to bank relationship, it is far more challenging because you don't have any history of track record. So you have to deep dive everything, industry checks, reference checks, etc. It's tough. Similarly, if there are situations where there are certain hurdles, uh, could be gray areas from the regulation point of view, you need to ensure that you're on the right side of the regulations, but still be creative enough to find solution, which will require you to liaising with Reserve Bank of India, liaising with some of the associations that bankers are part of, to form new solutions for the client. And there is always a premium for it, because if you are able to do something which is out of the box, which is new, which has not been done in the industry by the other bankers, you will be paid for it. So greater the challenges, the higher is your ability to make money, and higher is your ability to get goodwill from your clients, which will last longer as compared to just being there with them on a vanilla banking. So the more the challenges you are getting as a banker, the life is more exciting, and you will continue to stay put for longer.
That's amazing. Okay, we've got so many questions coming in. One question is from, okay, you spoke about, being an innovative banker, and we've got a question from Anubhav who says, tell us a little more as to how you can be an innovative banker to provide value adding solutions to customers.
See, innovation is not something that you can learn in any book or in any college. Innovation at the end of the day is a trait that you have to build in your mind. Uh, if you are happy with the status quo, if somebody gives you the rules of the road and you just follow the rules of the road, you could be a good person, you could be a good follower, but you can't be an innovator. For an innovator, you have to have that spark in you to challenge the status quo, to not accept till eternity the way things are told to you, to always question, can there be a better way to do something? So I personally love when I meet naysayers. When people come to me and say this deal cannot be done, believe me, I feel so excited because I want to prove that this deal can be done. And once I do the deal, the joy that I get out of that is unmatchable. And I'm sure this is true for all the corporate bankers. When I say I on behalf of the entire corporate banking fraternity. I'm just one of them. Uh, for corporate banker, if there are naysayers, those who will say things cannot be done, this is the time for the person, him or her, to rise up to the occasion and figure out a solution. So long as you have the plug in your mind which says, okay, I will figure out a out of box solution to do certain things, you will end up doing it. You just have to condition your mind to not accept no as an answer. Rather, keep telling him that yes, there could be a way to do certain things in a different manner. And that's one way of looking at things. The other way, Anubhav, of looking at things is, you keep reading a lot, you keep understanding the client businesses. So if you take maybe 15-20 minutes out during the day and try to absorb the information, the flow of information which is coming to you, and try to see that how meaningfully can you use that precious information to come back to the client with something more meaningful, something that client perhaps because of the flow of the day would not have taken a pause and assimilate that information and process it and come up with something more creative. So as a banker, it is important to take a pause, spend some time with your own self, uh, figure out how you can do things differently.
Okay, that's an amazing. I hope Anubhav, you've got the answer to it. Okay, I've got two more questions, and then again we'll take questions. What opportunities do you currently see? In the Indian banking system, like if you look world over, there's turbulence in the banking system, be it US or Europe, right? And in fact, recently even. Our prime minister, when in Australia, he said, "Hey, you know what? The Indian banking system is amazing." So, what opportunities do you see, especially in this world of fintech that's coming in, new banking, so many aspects? And also, what are the few highest paying roles in the banking sector? So,
Okay, first let me address the last section because for
okay.
the young audience, and same thing was true for me 15 years back when I was stepping into. Please do not give up to temptations. If you start giving up to temptation in your earlier age, and if you start deciding about your career, whether you will get 5 lakh rupees extra or 10 lakh rupees extra or 20 lakh rupees extra, it's a recipe of disaster. I know it's very tough to resist temptations. 8 out of 10 will give up to temptations. I know because when you're coming out of CA, you're coming out of MBA, you will always compare your package with the other guy's package. And if that guy's package seems to be 10 lakh rupees higher than yours, you will go into depression. You will say, no, no, let me get into the role which the other guy is doing just because he is being paid extra. But tell me, believe me, in a medium to long term, it's a recipe of disaster. See, there are certain things in life for which there is no looking back, and time is one of them. So the people who are sorted out right from the beginning, right? Very few, because most of them will have to explore, make mistake, and then learn. But few are blessed that who have mentors around who can guide you, who have traveled the path and they can share the journey, and people can get benefited and get into the right orbit earlier than others will end up saving a lot of time. And let's say a role in investment banking may be paying you higher in some organization than corporate banking, and you end up taking that role. But if you don't enjoy that role, you will not be able to spend a long career there, right? Similarly, a role in corporate banking may end up being paying higher than transaction banking, but if you don't enjoy corporate banking, you will not be able to do justice. You will not be able to spend time. And I personally believe, initially maybe 5, 10, 20 lakh rupees may be relevant. But after you spend time, you spend 5 year, 10 year in the industry, the growth is not linear. It's not like you will get 10, 15% annual increment. The growth could be as high as 100% in a one single year, right? It could be even higher than that. When it will happen only when you have built your knowledge in that specific domain to a level where firm feels that now you need an elevation, right? When you are able to monetize it appropriately. And that can happen only if you are staying course to that stream, which is what you want to do, which is what you have a passion for. A person who wants to be in front of client, if ends up being in a treasury role, believe me, for 2 3 years you may end up making money, but after that you will feel that your calling is somewhere else. And it's better that you go back where your calling is. So being the role where you identify that you can associate, which you are passionate, you are hungry for, which comes to you naturally, which you enjoy doing during the day, rather than whether it pays you 50 lakh extra or 1 CR extra in a long tenor. None of these figures are important, because some of the bankers are really paid in very, very high figures. And after a time, all these figures lose importance. Now, coming back to what opportunities do you currently see in Indian banking? See, I personally see that Indian banking industry is one of the vibrant and most exciting space for young chartered accountants, for MBAs from, as well as other colleagues from the financial background. For a simple reason that we are one of the most under penetrated banked country in the world, right? So today, if you see, the penetration of banking in India is one of the lowest across all the emerging markets and the developed markets. So for us to grow from here, the potential is just endless. Secondly, being one of the high delta growth country, a lot of multinational continues to invest. If you look at our FDI numbers, they continue to be the most strong numbers year on year, which means that more and more industries will basically get developed. uh, 5 years back, thinking about semiconductor or thinking about a cloud services operating in India was a really, really a dream. But today, you see most of the multinationals are there putting up their servers in India and doing pure cloud business in India. Uh, People are getting into electric vehicles in India. People are, companies are getting into all sorts of new age technologies. So what do they need? They need to go to the bankers, right? They need money. They will put in their own equity, but they also need money for working capital, for the term loan, for acquisitions, etc. They would need digital banking. They would need bankers to come and advise them on transaction banking, on cash management, on trade services, on the trade finance. So the way the banking is going through is in India is phenomenal. And also, if you look at on a retail side, the growth has been really, really astronomical. If you look at how the UPI, the wallet banking in India has taken shape in the last 6 7 years, maybe thanks to work from home during COVID and all, where a lot of cash moved to a digital banking, it has opened space for fintechs. So today, if you look at Bangalore, the place where I stay, I used to tell some of my peer, it is like a Kiryana store, because every alternate neighbor in a 3 BHK is running a fintech today. So there is so much potential in India, and these fintechs are doing a phenomenal job. Let me tell you, they are so creative that as bankers we continue to keep a watch on them, and we see how we can learn from them, how we can make them part of our journey to ensure that we continue to provide the best in class services to our clients. So whether it is fintech, whether it is the banking in across public sector, private sector, MNCs, I would say there is enough and more to do uh, today, and more exciting times are ahead waiting for us in the decade to come.
I have this question. That's very well answered. I have this question: is did you ever get tempted to look at fintech and maybe like did it ever happen? Your to say, hey, what if I can move to a fintech or start one? Did it ever cross your mind?
Uh, Maybe yes or no. Like any other banker, when you see the world around you, you feel excited about it. You feel tempted to jump in and give your contribution. But Chantel, I personally believe that I am a guy who likes to be associated with the large organization where you can make a larger impact. I have a lot of respect for fintechs, but when you look at the institutions where I work for, either my prior organization or the organization where I am working today. Uh, uh, I personally feel as a banker, the platform which I have been given, I feel very privileged. I feel that I can do a lot of impactful work, which creates the difference. The loans that we give, either in the pharma sector or in FMCG or in auto, the large sum and substance help able to create a lot of employment all across the country, because ultimately this money goes into putting up plants, putting up new facilities across tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, in addition to the metros, which ends up creating a lot of employment. So the activity that you do across your Richmond Road headquarters have an impact all across South India. So when we say that we cover Indian Peninsula, the impact you see when you see that it converting into employment all across the country, and a lot of innovative stuff that these corporates end up doing. Look at how companies are moving from a traditional business to biologics. So initially, a patient has to go to a hospital 6 times in a year for a specific dose. Now, thanks to biologics, one single dose, the patient is okay for the next 1 year.
Wow.
It's a greater good to the humanity, and indirectly, as a banker, you feel very privileged when you end up being an advisor to the companies which are making this difference in the world at large. So you see some bit of you participating at a very large scale everywhere when you see those plants and factories taking shape. And so I feel blessed that I've been fortunate enough to work for uh, the largest private sector bank in the country and make an impact on the street.
Wow, true. Well said. We have this question from Sudiksha, sorry, who says, "How can one navigate effectively and manage career mobility while considering personal and professional commitments?" That's one. Also, Harvansh, you've moved from Indore, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune. You've really and now South India, right? Total. So, can you tell us how important was mobility in your career, and was that one aspect which helped your career graph go upwards because you were not stuck on one location? And in addition to answering this question, yeah.
So, the people, who are very close to me often say that, Harvansh, you have got the wheels in your heels, because I really can't stay at one location beyond a point in time. And I think personally, it has helped me. It has helped me in my career. Both City and HDFC are extremely open organization for mobility. And I'm blessed, that I get to work in organizations which are open to mobility. See, it's important that you work in different markets, different geographies, because every geography is different. So let's say Hyderabad is very, very thick in pharma. So if you cover Hyderabad, you learn hell of pharma industry. You cover Bangalore, you learn a lot about technology. You cover Chennai, you cover a lot about automobile and a lot about NBFC sector. So unless and until you are open to move different locations, you will not be able to learn as much as you can if you are mobile. So I have worked all across the country now. I spent good amount of time, one third of my career in North India, one third of my career in West India, and one third of my career now in South India. So that way it keeps you fresh. It gives you a perspective about ethnicity. As one says that every 100 kilometer, the total dynamic shifts in our country, both in terms of the dialect as well in terms of the food habits. I love South Indian food as much as I love my North Indian food, where I was born and brought up. And over a period of time, it reflects in your personality. It reflects in your perspective and how you see things in life, and it keeps freshness in your life. So I think mobility is extremely important. Now, maintaining a balance between your personal and professional life, I don't think I'm the right person to answer. I would like to skip it. I think I could have done better justice between personal and professional life, but I try my level best to whatever extent I can.
Okay, that's when answered. We have a next question is, how tough it is for a CA to get into corporate banking, as you also mentioned that, you were lucky to get into corporate banking. So what about those, who don't have that, opportunity in their career?
Look, I think it depends on what you want to do in life. So long as you are very clear, right? You have the clarity that this is what you want to do, then I don't think getting into a corporate banking is tough for chartered accountants. Today, you take any bank on the street, every bank would have enough number of CAs.
Yep.
And at HDFC Bank, we take CAs right from the beginning, right from the industrial uh, trainee program, and that's an effort which we are placing to basically invest in our people with the hope that they will stay with us once they become chartered accountants. So it's a good entry point. Now, some may stay with us, some may go and join some other organization, but at the end of the day, we have opened doors for CAs. Similarly, I feel other banks also on the street are very open for CAs to join across the verticals. Some take CA in back end roles, while few takes in front end roles. But I personally feel even if you get into a back end role and then if you have a neck for it, sooner or later you will end up making in a front end role, so long as you have the clarity.
Yeah.
So, but at least at HDFC, we are giving opportunities to CAs to directly get into the CBG, which I wish I would have been blessed when I was doing CA. So I had to go through the grind, at least in the initial 4 years in my career. But yeah, so I feel enough and more opportunities for CA across the bank, and banks are open today.
True, I totally agree because we work with a lot of banks and we do a lot of hiring. They are actually looking out for CAs for their RM roles, credit roles. They want you to apply, right? So if you're interested, do apply. If it's not corporate banking, there's mid market, there's SME, there's always an entryway which you could look out, groom yourself, and then move on to the next level.
And
Harvansh, are you?
let me address this because sometimes people have a lot of the glamour quotient attached to the corporate banking. I personally feel banking is banking, whether it is a BBG or a ECG, the MMA or SME. Each segment of the bank are as valuable. At the end of the day, what satisfies you as a banker? It is your advisory. It is your it's what you contribute to your clients, and you grow with the time, right? One may want to be an investment banker or one may want to be a corporate banker. These are individual aspiration. I personally feel all the profiles across the front end are equally respected, equally powerful and impactful. Just that you have to decide what is that you like, right? And once you know that this is something that you like, accordingly then you try to maneuver around it.
Okay. Harvansh, it's already an hour. Do you have 10 more minutes? Can I take some more questions? Is it okay?
Yeah,
Or
until 7:15 I am good. Yeah.
okay, done. Done. We'll wrap up by then. So the next one is by Muskan. Since you spoke about industrial training and how I can make most of my time as a C industrial trainee in terms of learning and networking opportunities. If you want to take this.
So, Muskan, my advice would be that look, you are fortunate enough, I would say, comparative to me, that you directly got the opportunity to be an industrial trainee in a corporate bank. So, try to make most of it. As an industrial trainee, you will get exposure on the credit side, but more importantly, you need to get exposure on the client side. Try to join the bankers in as many meetings as you can. Try to read as many presentations that we make across the product, whether it is a pitch book that we are making for a trade services solution or for a cash management solution or for a forward or for a derivative contract. Irrespective, wherever we are pitching, uh, it's like enough and more information available. It is up to you how much do you assimilate, right, over a period of time. So much as you are able to spend time on this, you are able to learn as much as you pick it from there and be in front of clients along with your fellow bankers, you will end up gaining a lot.
Okay, cool. So that's from Muskan. Now this is Kunal. He says, how do we develop such analytical thinking for problem solving?
See, analytical thinking, again, these are all terms at the end of the day. I don't want to get lost in all jargons. I'm a very simple guy. In a very desi language, Kunal, I am telling you, uh, banking is not very, very high analytics. It's a very simple analytics. You just have to look at the basics number in the balance sheet and the P&L, make certain projections on a very simple sheet of Excel, and try to look at the bigger picture. One can get lost in data and data and data, and you are not able to make decisions. Your ability to decide does not rest with your skills on analytics. It resides on what are you able to make out of that the analytics which is presented to you. So more often than not, we end up over giving importance to analytics. I think so long as you are able to understand one fact, clear fact, you are able to solve 100 problems. But if you go after 100 facts, you may not be able to solve even a single problem. So long as you are able to get the big picture, the bigger picture in a right way, your job is done.
That's very well answered. Okay, the next one is by Divya. She says, while I think you've covered this, but since she's put it out there, I'll ask you. While the experience we get from client meeting is incomparable, is there any material, books or courses out there that would help an aspiring RM that they could refer to, enhance the requisite qualities in terms of communication, technical knowledge of a corporate banker, SME, ECG, whatever. Yeah.
No, so Divya, I think there is enough and more information which is within the bank, enough pitch books across investment banking, across capital markets, across debt capital markets, across transaction banking, across treasury. Believe me, if you end up picking one every day, you will be working and you will be reading at least for the next 365 days. So you have enough and more information. Rather, at times it's an overflow of information. But still, if you want to do more, you can always subscribe to. There are a lot of professional courses which are on banking. They are available on public domain. You can check. There are courses which are available. The capital market courses which are available through NSC, BSc also, because capital market is extremely important in the role of a corporate banker. So if you want to basically pick some of the skills specifically on how NCD works, or how a bond transaction works, how an FCCB transaction works, how a IPO works, or how an M&A mandate works, you can subscribe to those courses as well. It's up to you. I am a guy who likes to learn more from the university of my bankers, my juniors, my peers end up teaching me more. Believe me, both personally and professionally, than any course that I can take on any platform. So try to absorb as much information which is there within the firm. There is enough and more, but you can resort to these courses as well.
Okay. The next one is from Himanshu Goel. Okay. Understand that you have been a part of Citi for more than a decade in the last 4 years with HDFC. So help us understand how HDFC Bank is different from the others.
See, every bank has its own strength, right? And as a banker, you have pick certain things everywhere. So Citibank is a multinational bank. Citibank's is spread across the corporate banking, investment banking. Now they recently exited from the retail operations, but they are pretty much there in the corporate banking and the investment banking space, and the treasury space. I spent over 10 years, a lot of respect for Citibank. They made me who I was before I entered HDFC. And it's a global bank, so you get to learn a lot about the not just the country. You get to learn about what's happening all over the world when you spend decent amount of time there. When I moved to HDFC from Citibank, believe me, it was a very overwhelming experience, because the scale and the complexity at HDFC operate is extremely different scale altogether. So initial 6 month, while the DNA was same, because the founding member of the HDFC is ex Citi, Mr. Aditya Puri, but the scale at which we are operating in India is like really overwhelming. So I had to really struggle, put extra efforts for the initial 6 months and 1 year to get to terms with life, right? So that I can do justice with my role at HDFC. HDFC, I think, is thoroughly invested in India. We are a bank which is made in India for India. So you can see, we are there all across all the prominent location, and we are expanding. We are invested. We are committed. So long as a banker, someone wants to make career, a long-term career in India, you get to experiment, you get to learn and do a lot of complex stuff at a very high scale across the length and breadth of the country at HDFC.
Cool, that's amazing. This will be the last question. It's from Saurabh Mehra. He says, hi, help me define who is a complete banker. A transaction banker salesperson also calls himself a banker, and a 2-year-old in an industry also calls himself a banker. So, would you want to take this? Means he meant to say, yeah.
Look, if Saurabh, I get you right, you are saying help define who is a complete banker. A transaction banking salesperson who calls himself a banker, and a 2-year-old in the industry also calls himself a banker. Please elaborate. I think both are complete, right? Uh, a person who is calling himself a banker with pride shows that he is passionate about what he is doing. And I personally feel there is no definition that if you are a sales banker, then you are a complete banker, or if you are 30-year in banking, then you are a complete banker, but not a 2-year-old guy. I don't feel so. If you are passionate about banking, you love doing what you are doing, and you are exactly doing that, and you are calling it yourself a banker with pride, you are a complete banker. On the contrary, a person may be 20 years into the banking but doesn't like doing banking. He's just doing it. He's just stuck there, but has to call himself a banker. Perhaps is not a complete banker. So banker is, I personally feel, who calls himself a banker with pride, with a lot of satisfaction, with a lot of positivity and passion around it, irrespective of the period that you are spending, irrespective of the segment that you are working, is a complete banker for me.
Okay, cool. So, Harvansh, we've taken a lot of questions. Your closing message, to those watching and those who want to build a career in banking, what would you want to tell them? Or any
No, I would.
closing message?
So, no, sure, Chantel. So, first of all, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to interact with the audience.
Thank you.
I think I am a learner as much as many of the people on the screen who interacted with me today. Some of them I know, so I have learned a lot from their wisdom, from their knowledge. Some of them have been a teacher for me in my university of life. A lot I have picked from them, so I am indebted to all of them. I personally will feel that so long as you are sure, you have the clarity of mind that you want to do banking, there is nothing stopping you. You just have to make right efforts in the right direction. Please do not be greedy. Do not give to your temptations. Do not look at your entry level with a package of difference of 10, 15 lakhs, because 10 years down the line, it will not make any difference in your life. If you end up going into a wrong place just because the place is giving you 10 lakh rupees extra in the beginning, uh, it will be tough to take a circle back. I'm not saying it is impossible, but it's good. I've learned, Chantel, after a lot of tough lessons in life. It's not easy to resist temptations, but a person who is able to resist them uh, is able to be a high value man. So it's important that you don't give up to your temptations. Listen to your mind as much as you listen to your heart. Try and spend time with yourself, what you want to do, and do what you really love doing. So long as you are going to do what you love doing, you will excel in your career. So wish you all the very best. And we at HDFC are open to talent. We are growing all across the country, as well as in the territory that I cover. And we are open to the right talent, both whom we trained internally as well as the external talent, whether it is chartered accountants or MBAs or people from other domains. We are open to the right talent who is hungry, who is trustworthy, who is loyal. So please send in your resumes. We would be happy to look at the right talent and evaluate and uh, consider you on merit.
That's amazing. So everyone watching, Harvansh is very active on LinkedIn. Okay, you can send him a CV. He openly puts his email ID out there, and HDFC is hiring a lot of candidates. So
All our HR guys are also marked, so please feel
okay,
free. Anyone asks, so because I put email ID for specific job postings.
yep.
If
But
you have any queries about the bank, about the roles in general, most of my
yeah,
HR partners are marked
yep.
on my page, on my post. Feel free to reach out to them. Yeah.
Cool. Done. So Harvansh, it was really great talking to you. And you mentioned that you're still working on communication, but you're an excellent communicator because most people, are not fancy. They're most desi in India. So when they look at you, right, you can relate, right? So it gives hopes and dreams. You don't have to be a fancy person and a yo-yo person to get into this field. You just need to have your skills correct and your heart at the right place. So it was amazing talking to you, and thank you everyone for joining in. We will put this up in an article. We'll put it also in a video on our website, and do follow us on the finance story. You can check us out for career insights. So yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Chantal.
everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you. Bye. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Harvansh.